Good evening, everybody, and welcome to our regular, in quotes, Wednesday stream. I don't think it's that regular anymore. Apologies, we've been very busy. For those of you who tune in for the weather report, it's gone cold. It's gone very cold. It's winter, basically. We've gone straight from smash cut summer to winter here, it feels like. I'm still waiting for our guest. He's having some technical difficulties. Lewis will be joining us again. But if you guys want to support us, one of the easiest ways you can do that is both by donating via the Ko-Fi and all of the super chats and the super stickers. And we are still fully monetized somehow. So I'll probably put a book advert up later. Because you guys have been buying them and you've been buying the hardbacks, and we've been sending out signed books and all sorts. It's been a great experience. It's been putting the book out. I'm still very humbled by it, but it is all still for sale. No Evelyn today, although you will see her again. Don't worry. She's not been stuffed in a box somewhere like Trig. Actually, no. For those of you who ask about Trig, Trig's had a few health problems recently, but he's doing a bit better now. So if you're that way inclined, do pray for Trig, because he's had a bit of a hard time recently. I don't want to air too much of his public affairs, but he's a good boy. He is the boomer, and so he does have occasional bouts of boomer health, just like we have occasional bouts of boomer tech. We'll see that there seems to be some sort of internet issue, so it is out of our control. The data has abandoned us. When the data abandons you, when the tubes are stuck and there's nothing running through the tubes, I'm afraid there's not much you can do. But to briefly explain kind of a framing of what we're talking about a few things, but mostly to do with immigrant population's capability. I will wait till Lewis is here, if it is managed to get here. God, I hope the data drought isn't permanent. But what we will be talking about today is the various forms of life support that migrant communities, especially third world migrant communities, have to be kept on. You have to keep these populations on all kinds of welfare, as we've talked about before, on all kinds of different special interest programs. And there's a good amount of information we know about things that are completely contradictory. As you look into immigration, immigrant health, and whether or not the evidence says immigrants make us quote unquote healthier or not, there are a lot of conflicting streams here. It's obviously there's a flood the zone approach when it comes to different studies, but basically, you can pick your flavor. It's one of those areas where find something about immigration, find a viewpoint, and you'll find evidence behind it. It is a very, very, especially when it comes to health outcomes and things that are supposedly solidly measurable, you will find a massive divergence in terms of what people actually think. And one of these studies, and I'll put a spoiler alert in here. It does pertain to the greatest nation, the only democracy in the Middle East, the nation of Israel. Can we please get some affirmations in the chat for the nation of Israel? It is. I only wish that Israel would love us back. But that seems to be a sincere. I'm glad to see the likes of Connor Tomlinson and Julia Hartley Brewer and all those people being more open with their love for Israel, being much more open for their love of the great state of Israel as they hurtle towards having to fulfill their Messiah prophecies or get eaten alive by their population. We'll talk about the war of Gog and Magog one day, because quite honestly, it's very difficult not to make it sound like kook fist spear stuff. But we're not talking about that today. What we are talking about is the well-known fact that immigrant fertility drops as the generations go on. A point I will make here, and a point I often try and nobody trying to debunk us. We've never had like leftists come in and been like, "We're debunking you. You've been debunked. Look how debunked you are." It just doesn't happen to us. We don't tend to get many people come in and take issue with our actual work. We have people come in and take issue with our opinions out of context, and also basically who and what we are, but we don't get many people who come in and say, "Oh boy, that works really bad. Here's some actually corrections." But to shield myself from being actually, a lot of the evidence to the contrary of what I'll be talking about, because there is evidence to the contrary, or supposedly, it dates from a much older time. It dates from the 1970s, 60s through 70s, into the 80s, much of it. And also a lot of it is based on, quite frankly, the fact that these people haven't been here very long. Most of the strangers haven't been here for even a fraction of a single human lifetime. We're talking about the Boris wave and them hitting the 10-year mark. But you have millions upon millions of people in Britain from populations that have no long-term data on those populations in Britain. We don't know how those populations will look in 10, 20, 30 years' time. And we don't know how many, and the ones that we do know that about, we don't know how they'll look in 100 years' time. It seems that as generations go on, certain communities are more vulnerable to it than others, mostly for cultural reasons. Islamic families tend to try and have more children for invasion reasons. Really, there is a lot of active attempts at outbreeding within the Islamic community. That is something that happens. But even there, you see adverse health factors limiting what these populations can do and how big they can get. The reason I called it the Mayflies is because there actually is a lot of information that these populations may actually fizzle out. It's not contained here. I didn't want to contain too much primary research and dense studies, but the information we have on the Windrush generation, the first, in quotes, which is only a few thousand people, really, in the end, and the people coming to Britain through the 50s and 60s, is that actually, among Black Caribbeans, their fertility rate first drops to the normal population level, but then drops below it. We will see that some communities, as time goes on, are trending towards fertility that is lower than the native population. But there are other factors that will accelerate this as well. If we're talking about the 1960s and 70s, and as I was waffling here, Lewis, you've arrived. The tech gods have not abandoned us.
Sorry about that.
It's fine. It's fine.
It was an issue with the domain that I was using.
We have. It's fine. We have internet outages sometimes as well. You can't control when the data abandons you. It's fine. We've done the bump. We've done the intros, but I've not introed you. For those of you who've never seen you before, Lewis, and don't worry, I was trying to edit the description, but I had my own problems with YouTube just not updating it. So I'll put your information in the description afterwards, and I might put it in the chat as we go along, actually, for people. In fact, that's what I'll do now, because people don't really read the description. If you guys want to find Lewis, you can find his people don't read the description. This is what you learn on YouTube, that people don't read the description. Here's his Twitter, and I'll link your Substack as well, because again, people just don't read it. So there you go. Even though I couldn't edit the description because YouTube just, you know, when you edit something and you press accept and it just doesn't update. I was having my own maddening tech problems today. Absolutely maddening. But no, I was just going into. Don't worry, I've not gone over the IQ and war stuff that you want to go over, because we can go over that second. But I was just priming people about, there is a huge body of evidence out there which says that actually what we worry about in terms of immigrants outbreeding us, in quotes, is correct in terms of first and second generation immigrants in some cases, but third generation and fourth generation immigrants. It would seem that the evidence from Norway here, they actually say that the proportion of the population with an immigrant background will increase at a slower rate in future, purely from births. There is this uptick, and then there is this tail down. And some populations, again, I'm not going to get into extremely dense studies here. If people take issue with that, I'll talk to you in private. I've often found that, again, people don't click links either. But this is the broader evidence. I always like to point to broad trends that are widely acknowledged. And then mine into them. That's why we tend to use The Guardian so much. I did actually go back and check. The most used source for all of our streams is actually The Guardian to make our far-right talking points. We do use The Guardian quite a lot. But that's why they have to keep bringing these people in. If you're wondering why they're bringing in millions of people in an unsustaining manner to try and prop up their populations, it's because, to a degree, the managerial elite know this. A lot of the outward lies we receive about immigration are outgroup lies. Internally, they know a lot of what we're about to talk about. But keep that in the back of your mind, the idea that really these groups, their fertility drops to or below the background level within 2 generations, but also they have massive health problems. But the first thing they have, demonstrably, I don't think I need to prove this to you guys, because I thought this was a great jumping off point. I've read this one before, but thanks for reminding me of it, Lois, because it perfectly illustrates my point, is the fact that individual IQ matters in war. It may be the single most important factor, which is the headline here. I think you have some bits to pull out of this, but it's not just war, it's everything. This is a great encapsulation of the fact that these populations aren't capable of managing themselves. And so when a lot of people are like, oh, is this a white pill? Does this mean they're all going to die off? Yes, but also no. The problem is that these people are going to get sick and die on our dime. We are full of
paying for them to die, basically.
Yes. But again, we'll get into that a bit later. But first of all, we're paying for them to be stupid, and because they are stupid, demonstrably so, as on a population level, their intelligence is far lower than ours, and so they are unable to navigate all kinds of complex modern systems, and they are perfectly unsuited to conflict resolution in a Western country. What was the bit you wanted to point out? I can
just start reading off just the start of this article. So just for those that don't know, this is by this was published on the 21st of September 2024 by Kulak, who runs the Anarchnomicon, if I pronounce that correctly.
It's the Cat Go Kulak person. I've been up and down with them on Twitter.
Yeah, it's a bit awkward, but some of the stuff he just put out is quite good. So I'm not bothered about the general point here, which is where he's talking about civil war possibilities and things like that.
Yeah,
but the main meat of what he's actually getting at is broadly just on IQ stats. So let's start with this. I'll just start second paragraph in, because the first bit's about civil war. It's not relevant. So I point out that the managerial non-Western migrant has an IQ hovering around between 60 and 80, and that the average Western white male is almost 2 standard deviations above them, or those IQ points. Skipping a bit further down, war is the one field where individual intelligence does matter and does override where mere bureaucratic unreality, abstractions, or whatever can move the most brain-dead voting demographic. The basic essence that people need to take away from that is, if you have somebody that has an IQ below, and it does mention this further down, I'll mention this shortly, below a minimum requirement of 83, they cannot be used in the military at all. And I'm talking something as simple as reading words on a munitions box that you're going to put on a truck. You need a minimum IQ of 83 and above to do that without cocking it up. A prime example for further reading in this, I think it's mentioned in the article, is to do with McNamara's 100,000 or the trial that he did during Vietnam, which basically got people that had an IQ of 60, essentially clinically retarded, effectively. And these were not racially selected on any specific basis. It was just anybody. And they had a very high tendency of killing their commanding officers, due to stress, breaking down in combat, shooting friendlies because they didn't understand what they were shooting at or where they were shooting, and broadly just killing their own teammates or.
Don't team kill, guys. Oh,
Yes.
I think the internet nearly swallowed you there, but you're back.
Yeah, bad. Don't team kill.
Don't team killing's bad, guys. No team kill.
Yeah.
No team. If you team kill, you're off the team. But it is one of those things that all forms of endeavor, a complex endeavor, especially during strife, really separates out IQ stratas. And not civil war, but decline. That's what we always say. But as things become harder, and the public support, yes, just attacked by a burp out of nowhere. And as the public's kind of the public sector, as it were. I don't mean public opinion, but I mean as in the nationalized support,
civil service,
yes, of these populations is not withdrawn but ceases to function, then we will see the effects we're talking about accelerate wildly. This is their fertility rates and their health status that we're talking about, whilst they are given massive amounts of subsidy and privilege. They are a far less stressed, in many important ways, population than Western populations in the West are. By design, these people have been giving all the advantages deliberately. But you will, when the stress kicks up, when things do get a lot more real, you will find that the factors we're going to talk about become exacerbated.
Very much.
And again, the big thing is that we do live in a society. But we live in a technological society. We live in a complex
society.
Yeah, we live in a complex technological society. And within a complex technological society, these people do not thrive at all. Even with infinite support, even with infinite resources, these people do not thrive, partially because of their IQ. But I believe some of the IQ elements are overstated.
Okay.
I do believe that they are as stupid as they say, but I also believe that it's worse than just that. I'm not saying
so it's not a it's not a lie. It's just
not
quite as bad as they're making it out to be.
Well, it is.
It's worse.
It doesn't explain all of the adverse situations we see, which is that these people are not only stupid, they're stupid and unhealthy in a very, very, very real sense. First of all, let's talk about something that we've spoken about before, which is birth defect rates. The first way in which these people are not a stable population is that, especially people from the third world, and we're talking about mass immigration, especially from the third world here, is that they have massive amounts of birth defects, partly due to intergenerational incest, as we've talked about before. We've hammered this point home, but British Pakistanis are a highly dysgenic population. Due to multi-generational first cousin marriage, they have high amounts of mutagenic load. And that means that they are, even if you don't have babies with your cousin, if your parents were cousins and the parents of the person that you married were cousins, you're going to have birth defects because you are two inbred people having a half-inbred baby. Well, having a effectively half-inbred baby. You're chucking the wheel. You're spinning the wheel to the point that Pakistanis are responsible for 33% of birth defects in the UK due to cousin marriages. But it is, the thing is, it's not a viral post. It's just true. It is just true that within NHS statistics, that 33% of all birth defects are Pakistanis. We've been over this a few times.
It's just a straight fact. It's a fact. I wouldn't personally say it's true, but that's me playing a bit of a word fag on that to do with the meaning of the word truth. But that's just me. It's just fact. It's solid fact. You can't argue with it. And basically, the state, the media, various people that know about this just write articles trying to deny it, but then you get articles like this that are then openly talk about it for the people that need to know about it, basically.
We'll get into it when we cover the paper that regards Israel, because quite frankly, when I read that, I'm very rarely slightly speechless when I read something, but that almost felt like it was tailor-made to make the arguments for this stream. It is quite amazing.
It's on the nose. It's on the honker, if you will.
It's extremely on the honker what that paper says. But part of our thinking about immigrant populations is due to selection and survivor bias. If you have a very small amount of immigration, usually from the elite caste of a country that has already been anglicized by the British Empire being there, because a lot of the Windrush and all of that were people who could afford to come, first of all, people who had the skills to feel that they could arrive, which is different. There was no, well, there were NGOs, but there's no many the scale of NGO assistance back then. So what you're getting arriving are people who are competent enough to arrive as a first selection bias.
You could argue that if you were looking at like a bell curve, applying an IQ stat on it, if you just use a rough ball measurement, you could say that they're probably on the top 5% percentile on the upper end, most likely of their average. That's probably what they are because, well, they had to be basically to not compete, but to work in the various imperial civil service at the time.
Well, they're also generally just high caste. What you're getting here are high caste, especially Indians and other people like that. Or you're getting people who are, again, survivors. You get a lot of survivor bias when you have someone who's an immigrant who comes to your country in adulthood. They have already gone through all the infant mortality filters in their homeland. They've already gone through a lot of the mental filters in their homeland as well. So what you're getting is our pre-filtered people. That is not the same when you get population level immigration, but also
which is
sorry. Go on. No,
I was just going to add to that and say that at the population level, you have to assume that it's based off of the average. You can't say that it's the top or the bottom. It's the overall average because it's the entire population that you're dealing with.
Well, my other thesis is that a lot of this evidence has its hands on the scale. A lot of this evidence has its bias towards the immigrant. So as we go forward, we'll see a lot of excuse making for why things are how they are, but not much actual direct explanation apart from oppression. The first thing to talk about is obesity. It's not. There's a lot of other health factors that immigrants have. In terms of pressures that will make them both unhealthy and die early, but obesity is one of the most prevalent in especially certain traditionally high fertility populations. As we go through this, we'll actually see that the populations that have the lowest obesity, i.e. the Chinese, have the lowest fertility. So they're not having the same pressures. And obesity is one of the things that will make you have disabled children or be unable to have children, and of course will make you die a lot earlier, especially morbid obesity, which is what we get here. There's two, I think, here. Where is it? Because there's another one about health and immigrants. There's one here that explains it.
I think that's the other link.
That's the other link. But they're kind of both the same. They both got different overlapping information in them. This has got more visual, and the other one's a bit more detailed. Long-standing health conditions were most commonly reported by Black Caribbean, white British men, and Pakistani women. But this is not per capita. I looked into it. It's not. Long-standing health conditions were reported by Black Caribbean, white British, and Pakistani women. But I don't believe this is adjusted. So I'm still trying to figure out how they got these percentages there, because Chinese women. Sorry, this is adjusted. Sorry, but some of the other stuff isn't. I'm getting mixed up. This is adjusted, but yes. Long-standing health conditions were most commonly reported in Black Caribbean, white British, and Pakistani women, which is interesting because it's Pakistani women is the highest of long-term health problems, which would seem to indicate the dysgenic pressures there. White British men, it's because they make up the workforce that does dangerous work. Most white British men's long-term health conditions are due to work, and a lot of them are older men who worked in industrial or mining capacities. Chinese women
Yeah.
were least likely to be overweight or obese, 22%, but they also have the lowest fertility. Women from Black Caribbean, Pakistani, and Black African backgrounds were most likely to be overweight or obese. And look at these percentages: 74% of Black Caribbean women are overweight or obese, 74% of Pakistani women are overweight or obese, and 73% of Black African women are overweight or obese. This is a huge epidemic in the West, and this happens because these people are not meant to have Western diets. They do not do
Yeah.
well with Western diets. And in fact, sometimes you find when they create mixed race children, if you do have which is very
it's even
rare,
worse.
honestly. Yes, that tends to be worse because they end up
Way
with
worse.
yes, they end up with bizarre enzyme deficiencies. I'm sure you know that. I think you were talking about this. Well, you sent me a message.
Yes, I sent you a message about this because this is going back a couple of years when I was talking with some other people a long time ago. Because I'm a qualified PT now, but I've always been interested in fitness stuff, and obviously then pairing it with this kind of information. One of the things that I found out is that you could do tests to find this to determine what kind of foods you should be having as your diet, like your base, what you should be eating. So you can kind of find this with like Europeans. If you eat Asian or Oriental food that contains MSG, it can cause like inflammation and all sorts of problems in your bowels.
Yes.
Which can then cause problems with your thyroid, and that causes like other problems, like it messes all your hormones up. And I'm not going to go into a massive diatribe about that, but with Africans, especially mixed children of people that are so genetically very different. So again, like an African and a European, or you have an Asian and I say like a Portuguese from Brazil or something like that, right? You get these enzyme deficiencies, like you said, where you're able to, because you've got part European DNA or part African/Asian DNA, it allows you to consume, say, ground wheat as flour, as like a bread, right? In a Western version of how we have bread, but your body, because of to do with the mitochondria from, say, the females on, say, at the African side of the family, right? If it is, that results in them being unable to actually metabolize the carbohydrates of the ground flour. They can't process it at all, and it causes all sorts of issues, like most likely diabetes. It causes all sorts of issues. So really, you shouldn't really be mixing with other people because it causes the child's health to be significantly deteriorated, and it causes them to essentially die a lot younger as well, not just because of the DNA, but also because they can't metabolize certain foods. It's awful.
There's also I'm not going to go into it now, but there's also a very large schizophrenia risk. If you look, I've not even gone into mental health here because the mental health side of it is a whole other conversation. I'll probably have an entire stream on it with possibly with a friend of mine. We'll see, because he's very good on being mixed race himself and having a bunch of health problems. He did a bunch of research into it, and you find a lot of papers that are effectively muzzled and talk about, and we'll see this here, in the adverse health effects for non-white populations are always blamed on racism. Oh, and thank you for the $20 donation there, Paladin YYZ. Like flying a plane with one engine, listening to the Scrump podcast with only one accent will get the job done, but without the cool Wurlitzer effect on my headphones. Great show. Thank you. Don't worry, like I said, Evelyn will be back. She's been busy making spaghetti all day and is all out of giraffe gas. And also, thank you, Coney Current Year. Is this, dare I say it, a white pill? That was who was asking that. Like I said, yes, they are unhealthy and dying off, but they're unhealthy and dying off on our dime. So technically, no. Czech krona, I think. 50 Czech krona. I don't know what that is in real money. Oh my god, I can't believe that. Heathrow is a good example. Year on year, I've noticed the lowest support roles just swell with browns. Meanwhile, the pilots remain white, middle-aged. That's one of the things that they try and find roles for these people. And when you butt up against biological reality, these splits remain, and the more they try and therapeutize them, the worse things get. That has been contributing to the competency crisis very famously. But it is a fact that these people are less able to manage themselves, and if you're less able to manage yourself, if you are stupider, you are more likely to be obese. But if you are stupider and genetically predisposed to be obese in a Western diet, you end up with 70% of your population, again, of all black adults in Britain, 71% are overweight or living with obesity. And I believe the obesity figures are far higher. This is actually masking that, because a lot of white people are overweight but not obese, and a larger percentage of Africans are obese and not overweight. So the actual morbid obesity figures are ridiculous in some of these, especially Bangladeshis. Ridiculous in some of these groups. It's almost like I think it's like 50% of Bangladeshi women are like morbidly obese, and like
I can believe it.
yeah, it's pretty insane. But you get into it, it is kind of population by population. But the general fact is that high fertility third world populations become the least healthy within a Western environment, and one of the biggest indicators of this is their raw obesity rate. Again, you being a personal trainer, though, what do you think is the biggest factor that caused? I know there's the whole inactivity during lockdown, but Britain has got noticeably fatter. Why do you think Britain, apart from the Browns, because obviously it seems that Britain's got fatter as it's got browner. Apart from the Browns, why has Britain become so fat?
Well, you've also got it's mostly down to diet. I won't even say it's down to exercise, because I think there has been an overall increase in the number of people that are exercising. The problem is that a lot of the foods that they consume, they have various vegetable oils in them that cause issues like inflammation. But it's also that a lot of grains, it's not just the fact that they're cooked with oil that's not the main problem. It's actually because you put loads of, I think you and Evelyn have covered this, there's loads of pesticides and phosphates and nitrates and stuff that's slapped over all of the vegetables and the various grains that are grown all over the world, to force them to grow. But what this does is that it then lingers in the food. It's then turned into bread. You then eat the bread. What this then does is it messes all your metabolism up. It completely ruins your metabolism. So it slows it down. So even if you're trying to lose weight by speeding your metabolism up, right, you're in this fine battle. If you don't realize what you're eating, is that you're constantly getting slowed down again and again and again. And it doesn't matter how much you exercise, because it's not just down to just calories. If your hormones are completely out of whack, it really doesn't matter how much you burn off. Like you'd have to go into a calorie deficit of something absolutely ridiculous, like 500 a day. Like if you're quite light. You know, for myself, my maintenance with my training is like 3,800, something like that, or about 3,600 calories a day. So if I drop down to about 2, I can start losing weight. But
if you look at this broadly, you'll find that in terms of descendants of immigrants, most of the immigrant groups, if you look at Bangladeshis here especially, they are far less economically active. India's an outlier there because, again, of a lot of the 1970s generational stuff. This is descendants of immigrants who came to the UK under comparatively ultra-controlled immigration. And if you look at these immigrant groups, you will find that if they have high male labor market participation, they have lower female. So overall, descendants of immigrants are less economically active than the native population is. And part of that is due to health. But a lot of that is we can simply say that in terms of working lifespan, these people, if we're talking about managerial economic units, these people drop off faster or more frequently than Westerners do. You can talk about whether women should work and all that, and whether women should do things differently. But when you look at the raw figures from ethnic backgrounds, you will find that they generally, as a population, have lesser working lives and contribute less raw working hours to the managerial system. Yet, they tend to take more out in terms of resources. We've talked about the benefit system and the fact that universal credit in high Islamic areas is highest, where you find the highest concentration of third world immigrants, you find the highest concentration and the highest amounts of benefit claim. Yet they have lower working life expectancy, if we can think of it in that way, than the native population does. It's just another way of thinking about this. This is something I found on my research travels, and it's quite interesting that, yes, you will find some male populations may have slightly more, again, due to the fact that you have survivor and filter bias. But the evidence we have is that mass immigration makes this so much worse. That mass immigration makes the labor contribution of these populations absolutely plummet. You saw it with Indians. Indians had an extremely high per capita pay because they were mostly elite caste people brought over former empire-wise, and they were put in positions deliberately. But once you get the countryside coming in, the bumpkins, that wage has collapsed. And now we have, why is Indian wages collapsing? Is it due to racism? It's like, no, it's due to Indians.
Yeah. The slaves have now been brought over.
But these are the descendants of immigrants. We can't say that these people are traumatized by their immigrant background. I had it on screen earlier, but there's some funny stuff where they try and blame like gender norms, and they make the usual excuses for why these people don't work. But the fact is that they do not work, and that they measurably work less than we do. Let me see if I can. Did I miss that out? I will take a quick break though to do a quick advert, not only for our book. You should definitely buy book, by the way. If you've not bought book, you should buy book.
I bought book.
Buy book. Yes, thank you for buying book. But there's
I bought book.
Yes, there's all of the Major General Hilton books. They had a discount code running. That discount has now ended. A couple of people have messaged me and said the discount code doesn't work. It's because the sale has ended. Unfortunately, you missed it. But Imperial Obituary, 9 Lives, and the 13th Power by Major General Richard Hilton are all excellent books. I'd recommend them highly, along with our own book, of course, Anti-Politics. Good work that Whifflins has been doing. Again, I think there's a couple of people who are still waiting for signed hardbacks. We're at the mercy of international shipping with that, unfortunately. But they should still be coming if you've not received them. So do let me know. Generally, no news is good news, but I always worry when I send one of those out because I know how unreliable international postage can be. I don't know if I actually linked it in here. I might have made a boo-boo here and not linked this. But there's a lot of talk, let's say, whenever health is talked about with immigrant population, it always talks about the fact that they have less favorable health outcomes. Let's say I'm trying to waffle a little bit as I find it here, but UK health outcomes, black racism, because that's basically how I found it. Discrimination, health outcomes, race inequalities and ethnic disparities in healthcare. Here it is. This is the British Medical Council. We've been over the fact that a lot of these immigrants are literally inbred, that they are obese, that they are statistically lower intelligence, and they come from populations with high instances of genetic disease as a background anyway. But whenever we get racial inequalities in healthcare, in quotes, it is always racism that is blamed. We're not talking about the cultural aspect there. We're not going, ooh, boo, racism. I'm looking at the other direction here, which is actually they're using racism to as a cover for the fact that these populations are simply unhealthy. And they don't want to admit this. They don't want to talk about the fact that the propaganda we've been fed about immigrants revitalizing us as a dying nation is a lie.
Is the fail.
Yes, and also this does contradict a lot of the alarmism of anti-immigration people.
The right.
Yes, but again, I think they're talking about this in the wrong way. They're talking about this from a point of view that accepts many of the liberal precepts. It's not good news that these. Yeah, sorry, go on.
Sorry.
It's not actually good news.
It's all right. I was gonna stay in that it backs up the right talking about the immigration the way that they do. Actually backs up the liberal claim about mass and scale. That's what it does. It backs it up.
It does. It is about, we need these people. It's accepting the precept. I don't accept the precept that we need more people. We need better people. We don't need more people.
Correct.
We have more people than ever before, and yet we are struggling. We are struggling to maintain ourselves. The internal entropy of the system is struggling to make itself work. But every time you get race inequality in healthcare, you get white people blamed. But what they're actually admitting is that these populations, no matter what the reason, have adverse health outcomes. That if you are non-white in a white country, your health will be worse than white people in a white country. The reasons for that can be debated, but the fact that these people have negative health outcomes and have higher instances of physical, mental, and especially chronic disease is indisputable. It is the underpinning of a lot of the therapeutic state's mandate that these are fragile populations that need infinite coddling. Right. Let's get into the juicy stuff here, because this isn't actually it's by a Germany-based kind of internationalist think tank, which does a lot of boilerplate neoliberal talking point reports. But when I came across this, I was amazed, because I was going to do something about the myth of the healthy immigrant. There's something in Western countries referred to as the healthy immigrant effect, which is partially due to the fact that immigration statistics and research are a lie. They're a managerial lie to convince us that immigration is good. That's the first reason we'll see the disparity between the outcomes here, or the disparity between the research. But the second point is selection, as this paper will talk about. I'll just read.
The idea of hybrid. Sorry, it's the idea of hybrid vigor, isn't it?
Yes. Well, it's also the idea that immigrants are healthier. That the healthy immigrant effect is something that's talked about as real. One, I don't think it's real. I think that's selection bias. And two, I believe that these populations are only seeming probably about as healthy as native populations, because if you adjust for the things they're getting wrong, it's probably about that level because of the selection bias this talks about. But boy, does this become funny. I'll just read this first section here. An extensive body of research related to immigrants in a variety of countries has documented a healthy immigrant effect. When immigrants arrive in the host country, they are healthier than comparable native populations, but their health status may deteriorate with additional years in the country. A healthy immigrant effect is explained through the positive self-selection of health of immigrants. Partially true, and the positive selection, screening, and discrimination applied by the host countries, which hasn't happened very much. This is a very rosy picture, and so I think the healthy immigrant effect is actually just selection bias trying to make immigrants look good. In this paper, we studied the health assimilation of immigrants within this context of selection and immigration policies. Using shared data, we are able to compare Israel and Europe that have fundamentally different migration policies. Unrestricted mass immigration isn't allowed into Israel, and it is allowed into Europe. So these effects, as we'll see, the whole thing this is talking about in modern times, because this is from like 2011, so 2015, but some of the research is from 2005, this becomes a massive self-own when you factor in uncontrolled mass immigration. European countries have selective policies with regard to the health, education, and wealth of migrants. No, they don't. Who self-select themselves. This was true in the 1970s. It's not true now. Our hypothesis is that the healthy immigrant effect evidence in many countries will not be found in Israel. Instead, immigrants to Israel may arrive with lower health than that of natives and improve their health with residents in the country due to their universal health coverage and generous social economic support of the government. And here, this paragraph here from the actual report is amazing. I I love these paragraphs because they say that the soil in Israel is magic. Maybe it truly is the Holy Land, but it appears that the evidence suggests that immigrants are amazing and make countries healthier everywhere apart from Israel. And the reason for that is because Israel is allowed to undertake honest immigration research to limit its own immigration, and we are not. That is the primary reason is that Israeli NGOs put out pro immigration propaganda in Europe and anti-immigration propaganda in Israel. But I'll just read this. This is amazing.
It's incredible.
Moreover, it is safe to claim that the generosity of the Israeli immigration policy and system could even lead to the abuse of the system. For example, older parents or sick family members are sent to Israel to receive better health treatment and free the family from taking care of the elderly and sick. Yes, this only happens in Israel.
Wow,
Israel has also experienced mass
it?
migration from tuberculosis epidemic and high HIV prevalent countries. In Africa, I'll just switch over here for a second. And high HIV prevalent countries from Africa. Besides studies in, and they made most of those people leave. Besides studies in social sciences,
I wonder why.
studies in medical journals and epidemiology confirm that immigrants from the former Soviet Union had higher reported rates of diseases and suboptimal health, significantly higher BMI, lower reported good health status, higher incidence of heart attack, and other chronic diseases. This may sound familiar from everything we've just gone over. In this sense, we could expect negative self-selection of immigrants to Israel with respect to health. In fact, we can expect negative self-selection of immigrants to anywhere with a welfare system. All in all, we could even anticipate a sick immigrant effect, i.e., lower health of immigrants upon arrival compared to natives, as opposed to what is experienced in most immigration-absorbing countries. A comparison of the health of immigrants going to Israel with the health of migrants going to European countries can therefore shed light on the role of selectivity behind the health status of new immigrants. Or the information that says immigration is good in Europe is a lie, and the information that says immigration is bad in Israel is a self-serving truth. And once you are able to think in those terms, you begin to understand, one, the exception that Israel is allowed. It's allowed an exception not only in military terms, but in science. Science works differently in Israel. Israel is able to talk about the fact that immigrants are a massive drain, whereas Europe, we've been told about the healthy immigrant effect, mostly due to studying low BMI, high caste Brahmins from ultra elite families who are given infinite Western healthcare. That's where the healthy immigrant effect myth comes from. Again, God bless the nation of Israel for being the only country that seems to have honest resources about immigration. A lot of people will be, oh yes, well we need to follow them because they're based, but all the out-facing research that these people pay for says the exact opposite. And another thing we can talk about is that third world people have third world diseases. That was a great jumping off point because they talk about the fact that, immigrant populations are healthy in Europe, but they're bringing back things like tuberculosis in Israel because they're a mass.
I remember this being, I remember scumbag Farage mentioning this back in, 2019, 2018. I remember him talking about how we need to lower immigration because it's bringing back certain diseases into Britain, basically. I remember, and it was like a big ooh-ah, and you're not allowed to talk about that. But I do recall him mentioning that many, many years ago, actually.
Well, the picture we're building up here, and that Israel research is such a linchpin of this because it scythes through so much bullshit that's taught because it has to factor in the exception Israel. And when the exception Israel is factored in, you get nuggets of the truth coming out. They're self-serving nuggets and they're inverting the rest of the world, but they are nuggets.
But they're still nuggets of fact, yeah.
So we've got a little bit of time. I've kind of rattled through the evidence here. Do you agree with my conclusion here that we may be seeing these populations go into terminal decline and have a birth rate collapse bigger than the native population? I've reviewed a lot of this evidence before. I've kind of given you a skim because a lot of it's a little bit autistic and detailed, to be honest with you. A lot of it's due to like sex rates and the stressed nature of the populations and what,
Yeah.
these are populations, I said in the beginning, that are clearly on life support.
Yep.
Part of this is my conjecture. I've not seen many people talk about this. I've not seen many
I
people
haven't.
talk about the fact that
I haven't either.
immigrant populations in the West may actually collapse to a point that they become burdensome. Even more so. Do you think the evidence supports this, or am I being too optimistic? Because I actually don't.
No, I think you've got the evidence with the various articles that you brought up here, and there's more evidence that you can always find. I think combining the evidence with just day-to-day observations. So if you just go for like a walk around the outer edges of where a lot of these foreigners live, you'll just see it. I work in an area that is full of Pakistanis and stuff like. I don't think they're all Pakistanis, but I live in an area that is full of that type of person. They're all fat. There's very few of them that are physically healthy at all. You can see it on the face, the way they walk. They don't walk; they waddle. Really, I think overall it is correct. I think that it's probably going to happen a lot faster. I don't think that you can physically bring in the sheer number of people to maintain the current system if you just assume that they were the same as Europeans, which they're not. But even if they were, you can't bring enough of them in to keep it operational, but just based on the reality that they are as well. The one of the article that you showed right at the start, it was from Norway. It said it went from a birth rate of 1 to 2, and it dropped to like 0.12 within the second generation. That's insane.
No,
It was
tiny.
tiny.
It dropped by 0.1.
Oh, it dropped by 1. Oh, sorry, my apologies.
No, but
I mean, that's still big.
It is still big, and the evidence is
Massive.
that by the time you reach third generation, and that these people have children younger, so their generations are shorter. So you reach the third generation a lot shorter than in native populations. That was only second generation. It's not as extreme, but I've been trying to find a lot of evidence for third generation. I can't find a good amount of it, but the evidence I have seen and the conclusions I've come to from my own research is that it drops below in many cases the fertility rate of the native population. The biggest example of that is the Windrush. The Windrush generation is basically gone. The genetic material of the original Windrush people is gone. They didn't replace themselves. A lot of them. Their children certainly didn't, and their grandchildren certainly won't. There may come a time within the next century that the Windrush generation's genetic material completely disappears from Britain due to this fertility collapse and lack of health. The other thing I was thinking about is we don't quite know how bad it will get when the life support is withdrawn, or when really the life support collapses. When the life support that these communities are on falls down, we will see them revert to type as they are in their native countries, and many of these people will die in their 50s. The other aspect of this as well is that we've had population collapse, a couple of population collapse streams, really, because the last stream that we we had discussions on talked about population collapse a bit, and it's been a subject that we've tried to pepper in ever since like 2.5 years ago. We did our original populations collapse stream, and it's only really got worse. Those trends have only increased. So the places that they're trying to bring these people in from, there's less of them. So not only are they not reproducing or healthy in our nations, their own nations are having population decline and may end up having population protectionism.
I think they've actually gone. It's actually at a faster rate in places like Africa. Like most of the data on it is out east. What was this?
Ken Buckley, best comment award.
That's absolutely
Guns don't kill people, curries do. Summon the takeaway. Whoop whoop. Sorry. Guns don't kill people, rappers do. I saw a documentary on BBC Two. What's that goldy-looking chain? Who was that? Who sung "Guns Don't Kill People, Rappers Do"? Um,
I don't know. I don't know. I wouldn't know any of that kind of stuff.
I remember that as a meme.
One of the things that kicked this off, and the reason why I wanted to commission this video, is because when I was looking at, it was mainly the mixed racial backgrounds of people in England. If you actually look at the number, you'll have this idea that, oh my God, they're absolutely everywhere, but they're not. If you look at the overall population of that number, which is it's split between so many different types of racial groups,
Yes.
what you'll find is that since 2016, I think that's when the data was that I'm referencing here. I think it's 2016. It might be earlier, right? It went from just about the population of Sheffield, so about 300 something thousand, to about 500 something thousand in like 10 years.
Yes.
It's nothing. It's literally nothing. It's not even worth mentioning. They have the kids, and then those kids do not reproduce. It's just that simple.
And they do have large instances of health problems. I will probably do specifically a stream about mixed race schizophrenia at some point, because I've been assembling the granular evidence. I will go into a lot of detail in that. I've been assembling the granular evidence, and it is it's shocking, and it's also shocking the excuses, especially in America, made for these people. All the literature is this apologetics about, we failed you as a health, these outcomes are so bad that it must be racism. 32, 64, 128 times instance compared to populations of certain diseases. But a lot of people are going to be like, oh, well, is this a white pill? Is this the black pill? What's the conclusion here? Why I wanted to talk about this as well is that even if you are ideologically diametrically opposed and you ideologically support mass immigration, the reason I don't agree with mass immigration is multitudes. But one of the main reasons is that it doesn't work. It is not the key. It is not the recipe for a stable society of any kind, even a degraded one, even a subsistence one. You are running out of these people. These people, as you bring managerialism to their countries, are rejecting it. They don't breed in the enclosure. And if you bring them into our enclosure, they breed even worse in the enclosure than white people do. Managerialism is anti-human, and it is a system geared towards mass and scale cannot survive. It doesn't matter whether you are a fan of mass or scale, whether you are pushing for it. The evidence suggests that when you bring this human detritus here, it simply rots. It simply rots away. And if our system is set up, if our practical reality is set up for a mass and scale system, while mass and scale goes into terminal retreat, we will collapse. We will decline at a much faster rate than if we started to reckon with the problems of mass and scale now. I would implore people, if you are in a position to change anything about this, even if you don't ideologically disagree with the mass and scale system, it's not going to continue. It is not ideologically doomed. It is practically doomed. It is physically doomed. It is doomed by immutable reality. You can call it racist as these people die, but they are going to die. And it's not going to be in camps, and it's not going to be in the way that people assume. It's going to be tragic in many cases, and we're going to be called on, as we are always, to infinitely support these people. They will become, as they grow older and more unhealthy, as these populations that are 70, some of them closer to 75% overweight or obese, as these populations that have massive amounts of physical and mental health that have birth defects due to inbreeding. As these populations creep towards old age, we will find that demand for health services absolutely explodes as the working age population under these people that they were supposed to give birth to does not materialize. That is the demographic future of Britain. It is a lot of people will be like, oh, well, it's good news, but it's not. um, as these people decline, as these people rot back down, as they disappear back into the earth, basically, as they leave little mark on this country, they simply consume. They are more than a useless eater. They are an infinite medical sink as this happens, and I, it may sound cruel, but really the only answer is to acknowledge that these people are not us. We are not them. They are not as healthy as us, and there's nothing we can really do. And
And we do
trying,
not need to
yeah,
take the
yes,
responsibility for looking after them. You must harden yourself
yes.
to the reality that they cannot be looked after. And even if they were to be, it would damage, destroy, and prevent any ability for you to actually help them in any meaningful way. Just let
Yeah.
them go. You can't save everyone, just let them go.
As much as I stress that this isn't most people's fault, as much as I stress that the mass isn't responsible, the mass of immigrants isn't detestable, it is pitiable in most cases.
It
Most
is.
migrants aren't bad people, they are genuinely pitiable, which is why the left pities them. But them being pitiable, them being in a sorry state, doesn't make them useful. And as I think a lot of right wing propaganda, in quotes, which is why I'm not somebody who really identifies very hard with left right binary labels, as many people don't these days. A lot of it hinges on this idea of the intentionally bad immigrant, the idea that immigrants choose to be a burden, they choose to be a problem, and that we should take on board the one that don't choose to be a problem. But these people do not choose to be a problem, they are inherently a problem. It's not who they are, it's not
It's
what they
what?
believe. It is what they are. And I guess it's rare, and a lot of people don't want to say this, but yes, I do object to these people because of what they are, which is an unhealthy, unstable population that does not have really anything on a macro scale to contribute to this country because of the old world fact we have always known that they are not us and we are not them. It's just,
I'd like to just take this in a slightly just before we
oh yeah, of course.
completely round out,
We got a bit of time, so
because the way I look at this is to be more positive about this. Because basically, most of the argument I see it all the time on, even especially on Twitter. Now I actually went on it just to try and keep up with you and AA and some other
it's a
people.
terrible burn. I
Right?
need to get off Twitter.
It's
Someone needs to
awful.
hit
It's
with a
awful.
stop.
It's
Hit
awful.
with a stick. Sorry.
I've already started considering just deleting my account
I
already.
should just
Like,
delete
and I
mine.
only joined in September. I really want to just get rid of it. It's pointless. But I've only had it for like what 2 or 3 months. The there's a gentleman that's just coming here that's made me think about this because he's saying that he's mixed race himself. This is FA. He's mixed race, pretty healthy, and he's saying it's hard to find some to reproduce with or to find love and everything else. I would say that you need to consider what are you actually mixed with, right? Because it's one thing to be part European, part African, which basically means I'm just going to be blunt, you're fucked.
Yeah,
It's just harsh, but I'm not going to sugarcoat it.
everyone I've ever known who's looked into that stuff, who's had health problems as a mixed race person, go, oh shit, guess I'm fucked.
Yeah, it's like you're basically like dealt a shit set of cards, and the best thing you can do is to actually have children with somebody that is probably going to be closer to one side. Like and then you have to encourage those kids to have children with other people that are
You should
the
also
same. Do
probably
you know what I mean?
get screening. Those are the mixed race people are a
Yeah.
very great candidate for screening. A lot of your problem it's expensive, but some of your problems can be fixed with genetic screening. But again, that's not something that should take place to have healthy children in a healthy population.
Mm. No, but the point about to emphasize the mixed race part, if you're like, say, an Englishman and you have a German wife, you're not likely to have, you're not going to
No,
have like massive genetic problems because you have to, well, again, English people are, some form of descendant of a German, right? Germanic. So,
somewhat.
and somewhat,
But
right?
Western Europe
A
does have
language is
very kind of
fundamentally
similar genetics.
similar genetic, right? But they're different enough where you actually do get actual hybrid vigor, but they're not too dissimilar that you get these absolutely destructive genetic traits that come around. So if you mix in that regard, you don't need to panic as much. You're not going, oh no, oh it's fine, relax.
Well,
You know,
what
chill
we've
out.
learned, kind of around all of this, is that peoples existed for a reason. Uh, the best thing you can do is have children with somebody from your own country. That is the
Yes.
best thing you can do for your, especially if you're like white British, especially if you're ethnically German. You should have children with somebody else who is either ethnically German or from a neighboring country, but not much further. Really, that
Yeah.
is what it shows us, is that stable, large populations that are able to filter out genetic disease through eugenic projects, like Europe has done. Europe has been a massive 1,000-year eugenic project in many ways. It has filtered out many different types of genetic disease that other races suffer from in abundance. And your best bet for healthy reproduction is to reproduce with somebody else who is genetically healthy. And the most genetically healthy populations, people can bitch and moan about this, but in terms of the instances of all kinds of genetic diseases, are Western Europeans. The big
Yep.
takeaway from this is that all the evidence says that these people are just immutably genetically less healthy than we are, and generally will die earlier or die of a consequence of their own limited IQ. And that is a
Yep.
completely unpalatable thing to say, but I'm afraid that's the settled science, guys.
That's the science, actually.
Actually, guys, the science says that racism is right. I don't make the rules, guys. I'm sorry. The thing is, I have friends like that. I have friends who've come from like an autistic leftist position who've actually read and absorbed the evidence, going, well, guys, I just don't know why you guys are mad. This is just what the science says. I feel so sorry for this. Yeah, I feel so sorry because
it's just a fact.
The thing is, those people are right. It is just a fact. That is just what the science says, and the other leftists are screaming at them. But yes, you know what? I'm already following you. That's Lewis's Twitter there, and there is his Substack. I'll get this on screen actually. Sorry, I'm on the lower third. There is Lewis's Twitter and Substack. I'll link those in the description when YouTube decides that the descriptions will update today. Thank you,
Fantastic.
YouTube, for. I was very worried the stream wasn't going to start. That's another reason I waited for a sec, is that YouTube was also being a bit shonky. I'll make sure I haven't missed any super chats as well.
Have we got just a little bit more time?
We got a little bit more
just
time.
to round something. Okay, just to round something else off.
We'll get to our conclusions now, because I was gonna. What have you got to round off? I'm checking. I've not missed any.
I was just going to round off with just the other bits of, and this is actually to do with America. Again, it's referring to the Substack article to do with from Kulak.
Yes, I'll get that back.
I'll just read this bit. It's about 2 and a bit paragraphs. So I'll just read this for everyone verbatim. I would recommend, please go and read this one, because it is a long post. It is actually quite in depth, and it goes and it's open. Anyone can read it. It's not a paid for article, so it's completely open for anyone to read it. And it's quite interesting just on certain stats, especially when it comes to and specifically to do with organization. One of the other sides of this is that there's a concern that, all these foreigners, they're coming in and they're going to organize and they're going to take over this, that, and the other. They have an IQ of around what, as we said right at the start, 60 to maybe 80, right? Their ability to organize is limited to those averages, which means that their capacity to engage in certain concepts will be limited to essentially what they can think of, which is again linked to the IQ.
It also shows that other groups are organizing them.
Yes, it does. It does indicate that there is actually a hand that is actually kind of puppeting them and guiding them. You need to do this, but then they will run afoul of certain very low trust behavior, right? And you can kind of see this when you go on Twitter with like videos of how you have like Indians fighting with each other outside of a chicken shop.
The other one is the prevalence of scams. If you look at who are the victims of scams, immigrant populations with generally lower intelligence are higher instance of victim of scams.
So they're actually victimizing themselves at a higher rate than the native population.
Yes, they are.
So their ability to organize is limited. So I'm just going to read this verbatim. Sorry for delaying.
That's fine.
The minimum to induct a soldier in the US in any position as a cook, logistical labour, etc., is 83, as I said right at the start. Below that, even the least intensive, lowest stress, bare, unskilled labour task is beyond the capability of said person, and they become an absolute liability. They would make, and in this case, it would make the military incapable of doing its job, which is to, again, bluntly, kill people. That's the purpose of a military. It is to blow people apart. That's what it is. Anything else than anyone that says it otherwise is just an idiot, and ignore them. What this means in the US is that 10% of the all races US population is under this average IQ of 98. So 10% of the US population cannot be in the military, which and it will get into this in a minute, cannot be employed. And about 40% of the African American population with an average IQ of 85. 40% of African Americans cannot work in the military and thereby cannot work. The minimum IQ to induct a soldier into the US infantry, however, is much higher at around 98, which is obviously understandable because the majority of the people serving in the US military as infantrymen are, you guessed it, of white European stock broadly, with obviously they've got a very varied admixture. So, total 50% of the American population is considered incapable of serving a frontline dismounted combat role on the basis of intelligence alone, and that's not looking at physical capability like, oh, I can pull this weight, I can ruck this amount of weight on my back for this amount of distance, whatever. If you then take this again further, this was written at the time when there was the whole thing of Haitians coming into the US. Haiti, to talk about the recent influx, has an average IQ of 67. This means only about 16% of Haitians, which is about one standard deviation, could be inducted to do the lowest, simplest task in the US military, like manual labor, loading and unloading crates or digging fucking holes. The Haitians, 2 standard deviations above that average, which is 2% of all Haitians, would still not all have the intelligence to be inducted as frontline infantry soldiers. Just to emphasize the IQ and how important it is in one of the most important things, which is the ability to engage in physical combat. If you are stupid, you are useless, and you cannot organize at a mass scale.
Yes. And I would say that this, I wanted to do this stream, and I thought this was all excellent because it shows the immutable nature of these problems. You cannot therapeutize these people out of this, and you cannot only select the quote-unquote good ones. Because as you do, the chance of having a basically 50 IQ monster child, if you are a 1%, 101 IQ Haitian, is extremely high. And so the genetic wheel and the health wheel, again, healthy people from these populations don't necessarily have healthy children. We see it with the background instances as well. So I wanted to use this as to both people who believe in it and don't, as an immutable kind of hammer to say, reality says this doesn't work. Reality says no, which is most of what we talk about. Anyway, before we go, Lewis, have you had any good biscuits this week?
It's kind of funny because I don't tend to eat that many biscuits, but I will say what I did have as a snack just before I came on to do this with you. I had, if I can remember the name of the brand, it was a type of Italian, I won't say biscuit, it was like a baked, like a tiny little bread. It's Costa and, no, not Costa. You can buy them in supermarkets. I'm forgetting what they make. They make almond, like tiny little almond cakes that you can buy in like big bags at Tesco's and things like that. I can't remember what you call the company now. It's C and B.
Ah, yeah. I get what you mean. Yeah.
I think I can't remember how to pronounce it. That's why I had. They're so nice, so good.
We Christmas selection cream crackers. Actually, I had a good biscuit in that they're digestive. The weird little granary biscuits they've got in there are okay, but I forgot actually if you get the nice ones, the decent ones, that your kind of salt and pepper cream crackers are quite nice. I try not to eat too much refined stuff, but Anyway, thank you for coming. Thank you for coming on, Lewis. Thank you everyone for watching.
Thank you.
I'll see you all hopefully sooner than last time. Sorry, I'm trying to find out a couple of things here. I will just mute you a sec because I do actually have some newer outro music here. So there we go. Yes, a lot of people are asking about outro music. So we're gonna do some outro music now. Have a good one, guys. I might leave this on for a bit. This is I do actually write a lot of the music on the outros, and I'm hoping to actually record something in a bit longer format. So yes, this song is called Darkness. Yeah, that's very difficult to play all the way through. I'll get a proper version of that done at some point, but yeah, that's all one guitar as well. So yeah, a lot of people have asked me about the music thing. I'll be doing more of it at some point, but I thought I'd do a whole one for you guys since I have people asking me about that, and it's been a while since I streamed. Anyway,